And I want to thank everyone for joining us today for what will be, I think, a very informative and also a very, very important discussion about a topic that I don't know, I have to say it, speaking from my perspective, I'm getting older. I am considered part of that older driver community. I also have older parents who are in their 80s that one of them is still driving. And so I am very much living the older driver experience. So I'm looking forward to hearing from our panelists today and to really learning about what we can do and what resources are available to us as behavioral safety specialists at state highway safety offices and other organizations. So before I introduce the panelists and have them join us, I want to talk a little bit of, kind of give you a little bit of background. So, you know, we know that the older driver population is growing each and every day. There were about 47.7 million drivers in the United States, 65 and older, as of 2020. That's data coming right from NHTSA. And that's about a 38% increase from 2020, or I'm sorry, 2010, compared to just about an 8% bump in the total number of licensed drivers. And when we think about, you know, getting older, what we have to think about is the desire to remain active. And how can we help older drivers and older road users, not just those behind the wheel, really maintain their independence, because mobility is so important to being able to stay engaged and active. But we know that there are physical and cognitive changes that come with aging. That's also coupled with medical conditions and increased medication use that will put older road users, older drivers at particular risk. You know, some of the challenges older drivers face: vision problems that include things like glaucoma, cataracts, macular degeneration, difficulty seeing things clearly at night, hearing loss, and hearing is important to being able to drive a vehicle safely, muscle fatigue, joint problems, lack of mobility, the use of medications, as I mentioned. We have slower reaction times as we age, and difficulty with some of the maneuvers we need to make in traffic. For instance, making left-hand turns is more and more difficult as you age. So these are all things we have to think about. So today, we really want to focus on what can we do to assist this population? What can we take advantage of to help us in this effort? And we're very excited about the work that was done through the Behavioral Traffic Safety Cooperative Research Program, our partnership with the Transportation Research Board and NHTSA, to produce the report that you're going to hear about from our first speaker today. So let me start by making that introduction. I'm pleased to welcome Lorrie Laing as our first speaker. Lorrie served as the administrator of Ohio's Highway Safety Office for a decade before shifting to Cambridge Systematics, their safety team, back in 2008, and she's continued to work with state highway safety offices across the country. She was also a member of the Cambridge Systematics team that conducted research and produced the BTSCRP report that you're going to hear about, which is called Promoting Older Driver Safety, Guide for State Practices, and that came out just a little bit earlier this year. So I'm really excited to hear from Lorrie about what they found in doing the research and writing for the report. And I just want to remind everybody that we will have time for questions after we hear from the panelists today. So if you do have questions, submit them in the questions box. I'll be monitoring those and we will get to you. And if we don't get to you today, we will make sure we follow up with you by email. So Lorrie, the floor is yours.
Pam, thank you so much, and hello everybody. It's so pleased to be here and share with you about our research project. I want to introduce our team. Pam talked a little bit about our team. The other people on it, Pam Beer was our project manager, and Pam was our in-house expert in this topic. She has since retired and living the life out in Utah right now. Also on the team was Ryan Klitsch. Many of you may know him. He used to run the Highway Safety Office in Indiana. And also our analyst was Nusrat Sharman. We also had two doctors from Florida State University, Dr. Neil Charnas and John Sabanjo, and also Dr. Sandy Rosenblum from University of Texas. These three individuals still work in this area, do a lot of research, so it was great to have them on board. But what I want to talk to you about is what we were charged with doing for the project. So our project objectives The first thing we needed to do was conduct a survey of states to determine if they're implementing any of the older driver programs that are in the uniform guidelines that are suggested in uniform guideline number 13. Also to conduct a research review, literature review, to see if we could see what the effective approaches were, what challenges were out there already documented, so that we knew when we talked to the states later kind of how to couch the surveys we were going to do. The other thing that we did that I think is the great product of this project was present a guidebook that went through all the different kinds of recommendations of no matter where you are in the continuum as a state in terms of what you're doing with older driver safety, things that you can do to grow your program and change your program so it has great benefit to you and your state. So lots of good resources in that. So that's what we were charged with doing. And next I'm going to talk about our approach to doing the research. So I mentioned that we did an extensive literature review. That was kind of going, we started that and then worked into putting together our survey for the states. And what we were trying to accomplish with the survey was identify, are states actually doing things to affect older driver safety? Are they having challenges? How are they funding that? Because there's no direct source from NHTSA for funding for older driver safety like there is for occupant protection as an example, or impaired driving. And what collaborations they had so that they could do their programming, and also how they were determining if they were effective in the programming that they were having. We put together the survey and we sent it out to all the states through GHSA, and we got 41 responses. And as we looked through the responses, it was clear that were some states that were more advanced than others. So we were going to do detailed interviews, in-depth interviews with folks. And it was clear from the surveys we got that there were 4 states that really stood out in terms of being advanced in what they were doing. And those states were Florida, Maryland, Missouri, and New York. We also interviewed 5 other states that were in some other transition in terms of how they were providing the services. And so those states that we interviewed were Mississippi, North Dakota, Nebraska, Wisconsin, and West Virginia. And so that information, all between the interviews, the surveys, and the extensive literature review, the things that you see on the right side of the screen were what we were trying to understand the state of the practice and who was doing what and how successful it was and what challenges they were facing. So next I'm going to talk about Guideline 13. And for those of you that may not understand the guidelines, NHTSA puts out guidelines for various highway safety programs. There are 21 of them. This one is specifically for improving older driver safety. And when we look at the guidelines, they have multiple parts to them. And as you can see here, there are 8 elements. And so if you had the best program, theoretically the best program that you could have, you would cover all of these elements. And within the guidelines, there's suggestions on things that you can do. So it was within this framework that we use to craft our survey questions, to craft our interviews, and to look at the research to see what states could do to implement these guidelines within their states. The recommendations within the report were also following these different 8 elements as well. So if you go through all the guidebook and you look in the different chapters, it follows that sequencing throughout the whole thing. So the next thing I'm going to do is talk a little bit about what states can do next. And when I say this, keep in mind that there's a vast continuum over what's happening in states and what can happen just because of different situations. So the most basic thing to start with, and this is no surprise, is problem identification. All states do this anyway. They look at their data, they try and identify, what are their worst problems and where are their worst problems and all that. So problem identification is very important to do for this demographic. As Pam mentioned, this is a changing demographic and it's growing rapidly in a lot of states. It may not be in your state yet, but probably the tsunami is coming. So it's something that you want to prepare for and understand. And it could also be that it's not statewide, but it's in certain parts of your state, depending upon your demographics and you know, where people live. So that's one thing that we saw, that it was very important for states to set the groundwork through problem identification. The other thing is to be able to address the fact that you might not be able to do a full-fledged program, but think about what you are already doing where you could put things in for senior drivers. So think about your occupant protection or your impaired driving program as places that you're funding where you could put that kind of information in. And there's examples on the screen as well. The other thing to consider in a state, if you're struggling about resources and staffing and all that, is to consider your strategic highway safety plan. Every state has one, and that is funded primarily through FHWA. It's 140, Section 148 money, and many states already have an older driver focus area or emphasis area, and if you don't, and you're getting ready to update, consider that. If you have to do data crunch anyway, so find out if that's something that you can add into your strategic highway safety plan. There's other next steps on the next screen. And did you get to the last? I'm sorry. There, that's the one. Others to work with. I can tell you from the work that we do in Ohio, it's unbelievable the number of folks that are working on older driver safety. You may not know it yet, and if you don't, there's collaborations that you can do, people you can work with to get that going. One of the things, can you go to the next screen, please? Next slide. There's one after that. That's, no? Yes, that one, thank you. Sorry. The first sub-bullet, please look at that. I can't speak to it because I haven't been on those calls, but the interstate collaboration, from what I hear from people, is a great resource. It's from states that are working on this. I think Gail Holley can address it. I know she's involved in it, but I hear nothing but good things about that. That's a good starting point if you're just getting started, or if you want new ideas, want to expand, want to hear what other states are struggling with and what they're successful with. That's a real good one. Look at all these other areas. They're what we talked about in the guidelines in terms of the different folks that you can work with within your state and who you probably already are working with, and then also work to get information out. I can tell you the guidebook has a lot of resources in it. I was surprised how many resources we had. They're all over in all the different areas. So it's a good place if you're thinking of, you want to expand, you don't know how, you don't know where to go, please read the guidebook and it will give you great information. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lorrie. This is really helpful. I want to reiterate one thing that Lorrie said, and I think this is important. When we think about, problem ID, and your data may not show that this is a population group that is, standing out on its own, is having some difficulties. But if you dig into, as she said, OP, occupant protection, or impaired driving, or one of the other issues, and you start to dig deep into your data and segment it by age, you may start to see, the older driver population being represented more so in these areas. So we really need to think about that. We have to really dig into our data to understand where this population sits in terms of these priority areas, these areas where we're focusing our resources. So our next speaker, and I think Lorrie did a nice segue to that, is Gail Holley. And Gail is the Safe Mobility for Life Program Manager for the Florida Department of Transportation in their State Traffic Engineering and Operations Office. And she leads a statewide coalition to help meet the safety, access, and mobility needs of Florida's aging population. And when we think about states doing this work, we all think about Florida, and Florida really is the gold standard, and we can learn a lot. So Gail, we're really excited to have you, and I will turn the screen over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pam. I'm really excited to be here today, to be part of this panel, to share Florida's story, but also to talk about what we've learned. We have been doing this for a while, what we've learned through our experiences, and how we can potentially help other states improve the safety, access, and mobility of aging road users. So who is our target audience? Is our aging road users. And we do, it's not just drivers. I think, Pam touched on that earlier. It is people using all different modes. And in Florida, we actually include golf carts. It's very popular as a mode of transportation here. And we also we include people that are 50 and older. I'm not the most popular person when I say that, but there's a reason behind it, is because we want to be able to change behavior. And so we want to try to reach the 50 to 64-year-old group, help change behaviors before reaching 65, because that's where the data is. Those were the numbers crunching. So, so that's why we do it that way here in Florida. And so a little bit of, history, like we always have to go backwards to move forwards. And one thing is that, it's no surprise Florida's population is large, but DOT actually took a very proactive role back in the 90s when there was research that came out that said, how to make roadway improvements to compensate for the natural age-related changes. We did that, and that was fantastic. But when we were looking ahead and seeing that, by 2045, 25% of our population was going to be over the age of 65, we knew we needed to do something different. We were not going to be able to reduce the fatalities and serious injuries if we only focused on the roadway. So in 2009, we formed the Safe Mobility for Life Coalition. And on the next slide, we'll kind of talk a little bit about our partnerships there. And the one thing I want to point out to everyone is that we partnered with the Pepper Institute on Aging and Public Policy at Florida State University, and they actually have a 402 safety grant to help us implement and manage the coalition. I'll try, and a lot of the resources I'm sharing, to be able to let you know which ones were grant funded, because we have used state fundings for some things as well. But we are 32 member organizations. We have a very robust group, very diverse. Your players that you would normally see. We have AARP, or Highway Safety, Elder Affairs, but we also have our Association for Senior Centers and Area Agencies on Aging, some of our regional planning councils. So everybody that is involved is really very passionate about it. And we are all charged with improving the safety, access, and mobility by, we want to reduce and eliminate fatalities and serious injuries, but we also want to maintain mobility. It's important that we just don't talk only about, no one driving. We need to make sure that people are getting around, and they're getting around safely. So our coalition really does work. How we work to meet our goals is this kind of 5 pillars, and it all goes into everything that we do. Ultimately, we're all committed to target zero. We are very committed to getting that down. That's the Florida's goal. And so we really try to work within these pillars to really address that and working together. So I'm going to just kind of briefly touch on some of them. I know I'm going to tell you right away, there's a lot of information, but you'll get this information in the PowerPoint, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or afterwards as well. So let's start a little bit about collaboration on the next slide. And so the reason I wanted to point this out is not to talk about all the things that Florida's done. It's really to talk about the things we've learned. Going through this, we, allergies. So sorry. This is important.
Okay, Gail?
Yeah, I live in a very allergy state. Okay. So, yeah, I want to talk about collaboration. So about in 2018, we rebranded our message, which was very important. And talk about that a little bit. If you want to just advance the slides, sorry. This is our empoweringness. You know, guys, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Pam, I just can't. You want to just go to Taylor?
Go ahead, Olivia, let's advance to the next set of slides and we'll give Gail a break.
Sorry.
Don't worry. If you want to go ahead, Olivia, and advance to the next set of slides for our next speaker, for Taylor, that would be great. Thank you. So we'll go ahead and introduce Taylor. Taylor B is a highway safety specialist with the U.S. Department of Transportation, working with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. And in her role, Taylor develops and evaluates behavioral safety countermeasures to address the safety of vulnerable road users. That includes older drivers, older pedestrians, older road users. And she utilizes her master's in public health and her 8 years of traffic safety experience to really inform her work on a national level. Taylor told me that she loves to travel and to visit new places and spend time with her loved ones, which we appreciate. But we're glad she traveled virtually to be with us today and be a part of this webinar. So Taylor, I will turn the screen over to you.
Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you for the introduction, and also just thank you for this opportunity to speak on this very important topic during today's webinar. As Pam mentioned, my name is Taylor B, and I work at the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration in the Office of Safety Programs, Safety Countermeasures Division. And yes, my program area is older road user safety. And so on the next slide, I would like to share very briefly just the mission and goal for the Safety Countermeasures Division's older road user safety program area. And it is to help older road users to drive for as long as they can do so safely and encourage the development of transportation planning and mobility alternatives for those who can no longer drive. And so on the next slide, I wanted to just lay that foundation as to why we were talking about the older adult population and traffic safety. But I believe Pam and Gail and Lorrie, they've done a great job of just kind of laying that foundation out. And so I'm not going to go through these slides too much, but what I will say is that these data points speak to the critical nature for us all to continue our efforts on safe mobility for all road users. And that is why the United States Department of Transportation and NHTSA are committed and support the efforts to eliminate fatal and serious injuries for all road users. Without going into too much detail, DOT's efforts can be seen through the National Roadway Safety Strategy and also the safe system approach that's adopted into that strategy. Okay, next slide, please. And so many of you, I'm sure on the call today, are familiar with the NHTSA.gov webpage and traffic safety marketing. That NHTSA.gov page, I always think of it as our public-facing page where you'll be able to really find general information on all areas of NHTSA. We do have a dedicated older driver page located on that website. And then that traffic safety marketing page, that really houses it houses NHTSA's communication resources for states, our partner organizations, and also our highway safety professionals. And these marketing tools really offer a way to get involved through either traditional or even online media. And as you can see, we also have an older driver page that we're adding additional evergreen material to. All right, and then the next resource that I'd like to share on the next slide here. Okay, so this is our National Center for Statistics of Statistics and Analysis, or NCSA. So this is actually our data visualization tool. this portal presents interactive visualizations that focus on several highway safety topics of interest. And so we currently have 8 topic areas. And so this is passenger vehicles. And if you click one more time, I believe pedestrians might, yep, and it popped up. And so as you can see, it includes multiple dashboards with information on our fatal motor vehicle traffic crashes and fatalities, on data from our NHTSA's FARS data, or that Fatality Analysis Reporting System. And so on the slide right now, I just wanted to show you how it would look if you selected one age group. So I actually selected 65 to 69. So all that data that you're viewing on this dashboard is specific to that age group. And so that's just a really great visual for people to use in their slides or just in their education. All right, and so on the next slide, NHTSA also has resources that will support your older driver programmatic efforts. I'm so glad that Lorrie, she mentioned some of these, specifically that Highway Safety Program Guideline number 13. We also have our safety countermeasures that works document. And so both of those documents will really help you develop your program. We also have another really great resource, which is our Transportation Safety Institute's Older Driver Program Management course. And so this is a live online course where you learn the skills necessary to manage a successful and sustainable older road user program. And so this course consists of 4 hours of training in a 1-day period. And so if we go to that next slide, this next resource I'd like to share with you is a great resource to share with your healthcare providers within your communities. And so it is called the Driver Safety Clinicians Connection page, which was developed by WebMD or Medscape, and it's funded by NHTSA. And so WebMD or Medscape was tasked to develop a web-based educational courses with available continuing education credits to our healthcare providers. And so these courses are directed to our healthcare professionals to really enhance their knowledge and understanding of the impact of medical conditions and impairment on safe driving and the role of the healthcare provider. And so these courses can be in the form of a panel discussion or a video presentation, for example. And these courses are free to anyone, even outside the healthcare field. And we have released up to, I think, 21 courses thus far. And so that's a really great resource to use and to really share with your healthcare professionals. All right, and so on the next slide, this is the last resource I wanted to share with you all. And so this is our Clearinghouse for Older Road User Safety, or CHORUS for short. This project was actually jointly funded by NHTSA and the Federal Highway Administration with a joint goal of developing a web-based clearinghouse of information pertaining to older road user safety. And so CHORUS was created to provide trusted, comprehensive, and unbiased information to the older road user, your law enforcement officers, state driver licensing agency staff, healthcare providers, and even our social and aging services providers in their efforts to really engage in traffic safety with the older adult population. And so on the next slide, we're going to take a look at some of the tools and resources located on CHORUS for each of our audiences to provide materials that are relevant and can easily be integrated into ongoing programmatic efforts and activities. And so these information pages include audience-specific pages that address topics such as the ones that you see on the slide here. And so on the next slide, we have an example of one of the lobby slides and posters that you can use and download off of CHORUS. And so some of these materials, such as the lobby slides, posters, and other handouts, can be modified and tailored so that you can include local information that might make it more relevant to your stakeholders. And really, you can add these lobby slides to your waiting areas, for instance, to hopefully increase that awareness among older drivers and their family members, and really point them to those resources to help improve their traffic safety. And so on the last slide here, this this resource I wanted to share because it's actually located on our course state info page. And so the state info page is where you can go to learn about state-specific information such as licensing requirements, transportation options in your community, and other resources in your state. And so on that state info page, we'll soon be releasing information that has compiled on various state traffic safety programs for older adults. And so these can be helpful for program staff interested in building or even enhancing that program. And this page will have will include a reference table in identifying those program elements that are included for each state, as well as that fact sheet for each state, which we have that Florida fact sheet for an example. And so this information can help you connect with a traffic safety professional in another state to really learn how they approached a particular program, or even, potentially just, building from their success and lessons learned. And so if your state is not yet included on that list, please reach out to the course team, and all of our information will be sent to you so that we can include that information. And so if we move to the next slide, I would just like to say thank you so much for your time and attention, and for all of the work that you do. That's our resource slide. I think we have the thank you slide might be the next. Maybe one more slide over. So that's it. And then the last slide is the thank you slide. My apologies. But thank you all for your time and attention, and just all your work that you do in the field of older road user safety. And so now I will pass the virtual floor back to Pam. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Taylor. We really appreciate that. I was not aware of that resource that showed all the services, materials, and so forth available from the state. So I learned something new right off the bat. So thank you for that. I'm going to definitely be checking that out. And somebody asked if there's a link to that. And we are sharing links, and of course, the PowerPoints will all be there. This is recorded, so you'll have access to this recording tomorrow. So I wanted to remind folks of that. So thank you again, Taylor, really appreciate that. And we'll come back to you for some questions. You're not off the hook yet. So let me bring on next Matt Sampson, who is the Senior Online Advisor with AARP Driver Safety. He started with AARP back in 2016, following a career in project management for AOL. And he has previous experience managing clients with a video production agency. So Matt's initial focus with AARP Driver Safety has really been on overseeing all aspects of their online smart driver course. And he's also led driver safety's movement into the telematics space. He's been working with Cambridge Mobile Telematics to plan, develop, and launch AARP's Safe Trip app, which I know he's going to talk a little bit about. So I'm thrilled to have Matt on the webinar with us today and to learn about AARP. And if you don't, you're thinking, okay, we've got NHTSA and we had this report and we got the states, but AARP is an organization just like GHSA is a member organization, AARP is, but they have chapters across the country. So I'm excited to have Matt talk about what they're doing and where there's some synergies and opportunities to collaborate. So Matt, the floor is yours. I guess, again, the screen is yours.
Thanks. I think it's important to point out, first of all, I'm actually wearing a different shirt than the one in my headshot there. I just own a lot of very similar patterns, but it is different. Thanks for having me here today. I wanted to start off with the next slide, just kind of talking just a little bit about AARP Driver Safety. We're a 40-plus-year-old program that started with our classroom course taught by AARP volunteers across the country, which is something we're still doing today. You know, the premise of that course being that you get your license in your teens and lots of things change over time, the rules of the road, your physical self, and it's worthwhile to make sure that you're cognizant of all these things and how they may impact your driving. So to this day, that classroom course and our, the corresponding online course are still, driver safety's bread and butter, but as is outlined a little bit on this slide right here, we've evolved over the years to develop other programs that are important to older drivers. As we move over to the next slide, we'll dive in a little bit more about how we're continuing to evolve with the changing landscape of safe driving, technology, and insurance. Most notably, how telematics is going to play a big role in that evolution for us. A few years ago, we started looking into telematics apps in that in the telematics space. Like probably just about everybody who's on this webinar, we'd seen the commercials on TV about how using one could save you money on your insurance. And we were so we partnered up. We've got a big research team within AARP, and found about 500 people to take part in a study. We asked questions before the study to gauge people's thoughts about not how they drove, what benefits they could see in using a telematics app, and what they were worried about in potentially using an app like that. And one of the key things that's highlighted on the slide, and it goes back to what Pam pointed out in her intro, is just how key driving is to people in in this older demographic, whether it's a medical, emotional, social. We found that 3 out of 4 people said that driving plays extremely or very important role in their lives. So we identified this group. We did the pre-pilot questioning of them, and then they spent about 8 weeks driving with a telematics app. And during that period, we had check-ins with them, kind of mini breakout discussion sessions to figure out how things are going. And then we wrapped up post their driving time with the app with another round of questions. And then in addition to that, we obviously had all the data that the app was collecting. So moving ahead to the next slide, just a kind of a quick peek at some of the top level findings there. And one of the big things was that people didn't necessarily see problem areas that they might be having, or that they could use a little guides behind the wheel. We had lots of folks who in their pre-pilot survey, and I also think I'm an excellent driver, so I would probably do this as well, rated themselves as excellent drivers. And a lot of those folks according to the app, did not score very well in their first week of driving. Something that was very encouraging to us is that a majority of the people who took part in this pilot, with careful monitoring on the app and kind of being mindful of what they were doing, saw that their driving and their driving scores improve over the 8-week time period. And just as important as that, I think, is seeing the scores go up, is that people felt more empowered. They really thought that they were improving as drivers and being more mindful and cognizant of what they were doing behind the wheel. So knowing that an app like this, what an app like this did to improve driving, and knowing that AARP could offer it to people with no worries about their insurance premiums going up, or their keys being taken away, which were things identified in our pre-pilot survey as to kind of roadblocks into folks maybe using an app like this. That led us to the development, to moving forward with the development of AARP Safe Trip. And we'll see just a little bit more about the app that we developed on the next slide. So we partnered with Cambridge Mobile Telematics out of Boston. They're actually they're kind of the backbone or the engine of a lot of the apps that insurance companies do use as well. But we created our own version of it. We, as I like to say, we kind of AARP-ified Cambridge's sort of base level app, to bring not only AARP branding and everything in, but also tie it into our AARP rewards program, which we had seen, the organization seen a lot of success tying AARP rewards to somebody's health and fitness app, their Fitbit or their Apple Health, to incentivize people. And so we wanted to do the same sort of thing to incentivize good driving by tying it to our AARP rewards program. And really, what the app does is it monitors and scores you based on 5 proven key indicators of safe driving, as you can see listed there on the slide. So before I wrap up and get to the next slide, I think my colleagues in the marketing group would be very mad at me if I didn't show our fancy promotional video for Safe Trip. So if we could maybe roll that, please.
You're a good driver. The AARP Safe Trip app could help you become an even better one. A free tool you can easily download on your smartphone, this helpful app lets you monitor your driving habits, providing valuable insights on how you're doing and earning you potential rewards when you improve. AARP Safe Trip helps you keep track of 5 key driving behaviors, everyday practices like braking, accelerating, and cornering that have been proven to increase safety and reduce crashes. The app also makes it easy to celebrate your successes by allowing you to see how your driving stacks up to others who use it. Plus, with AARP Safe Trip, you can earn AARP rewards points and achievement badges when you reach specified goals or accomplishments. Best of all, your AARP Safe Trip data belongs to you, so it will never affect your insurance premiums in any way. Show off your good driving and get rewarded for it by downloading AARP Safe Trip, a smart way to safer driving habits.
So we launched Safe Trip in late December. If we can jump to the last slide, and we are right now. We've had a lot to do with for across the organization with our data and our systems and everything. There was a migration happening, and so we are really just now. We've been all the data for the drivers has been being recorded, obviously, but we're just now getting to the point where we can fully access it and pull it into some dashboards and really start to look at it. And it should be pointed out as that all the data that we get over is anonymized, but we want to start looking at trends obviously within the data. If somebody is on the app for X number of weeks, are we seeing fewer instances of speeding or distracted driving, and really kind of start to fully understand how an app like this, while there's a lot of research out in the field that says that people improve the longer they're on this. We want to know that specific to AARP Safe Trip. And not only that, so not only seeing exactly what the driver data is telling us, but we see this as a real complement to some of the the work we've been doing for 40 years with the online course. There's a lot of theory in the online course, and telling you about the new roads and telling you how to drive, but an app like Safe Trip can obviously help you realize if you're putting those those theories into practice. And as we kind of better understand the data and the drivers and where they may need help, it could it's a great way for us to continually refresh our classroom and our online curriculum to make sure that we're teaching to the points that are most impactful to older drivers. And then down the road we are as soon as an app launches, you start working on version 2 of it. So that is underway. There are some exciting new features that we'd like to wrap it, potentially wrap into a new version of Safe Trip. And so we've already kind of kicked off discussions and scoping meetings as to what we want to do in the second half of 2023 and beyond. So lots to do still, but we're very excited as to where we are with this app right now and what's next and what's ahead. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Pam, and I think probably to start the Q&A portion of things.
Actually, thank you, Matt. We're gonna try to bring Gail back on. She's with us, there she is. And I'm gonna ask Olivia, our Oz behind the camera, if she could pull up Gail's slides. Let's see if we can make this happen. And we'd like to give Gail a chance to talk a little bit more about Florida. We're getting tight on time, but I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about what you're doing. There we go.
I'm just going to hit a few highlights. If you just want to go to the next slide too, because I really just want to focus on what we've learned and how we can help. So by changing our message was really clear. We used to be safety is golden, and we changed to safe mobility for life. And then we created this empowering message where it was you hold the keys. These 3 key pieces that we want people to understand the impact aging has on driving, be proactive about safe driving skills, and then plan for a safe transition. And we use this throughout all of our materials to kind of drill down the message, no matter who we're talking to, whether it's older adults, law enforcement, or local communities. Next slide. So the other message that we've really been promoting is this, how important it is to maintain mobility. And what we want Floridians to achieve, mobility independence, which means that they can stay safe, mobile, get to and from the places they both need and want to go beyond driving, that they have options in their community. So that will allow for a safe transition. So while our messaging is important, our data is also important as well. And I know we've touched on that. So in the next slide, I wanted to just mention to you how we collect data and how we share data. So one of the things that we really wanted to do is get a really good baseline every year. We get closeout data from the highway safety and motor vehicles for all known ages. So that way we make sure that we have very clear lines. And then we actually put this on a dashboard. We made our data easily accessible so our communities and counties can actually see where they are, and that they also can use the data to apply for grants or do anything to help, draw attention and use this data within their communities as well. And then on the next slide, I really wanted to show a little bit that we go beyond just showing the numbers. We're really trying to visualize the data and be able to help with decision making. So we have this GIS map based through our office called eTraffic. And I've pointed out some of these are all of our community partners. We have like where this is the intersections and fatalities for 65 and older. So that way we can overlay the data and to use it to make better decisions. So we have a lot of different choices. There's a QR code and you'll get all the links to go check it out, but it's really allowing us to be a little bit more proactive with our outreach instead of being reactive. And so I just wanted to touch on our stakeholders. We do develop stakeholder specific information for all of these stakeholders. Everyone has a role. And I just wanted to share, like in the next slides, just a little bit on older adults, what we're doing and the resources that are available, and then licensing and enforcement. So for older adults, it's really important that we have consistent messaging. We've actually used research to develop a human factors research project that we did to develop a way to actually, how do we communicate our message to this audience so that way we're not offending and we're getting people to pay attention. So we have a guide for safe mobility for life that walks them through each of the keys. And then we also started doing more educational graphics to actually just easily teach people how to use and navigate these features that we put out on the roadway. We have, with our age group, we have both print and digital materials available. We do a lot with social media campaigns. I really consider it to be low-hanging fruit. And then we've also developed a newsletter that we do quarterly that really gives us a chance to delve a little bit deeper and tell stories and share information. And we actually use this also to educate about other coalitions, because like Pam said, you might not have a program, but if you have, an impaired driving, you're gonna have all ages in it, or ped bike as well. So this gives us a chance to kind of educate in that area a little bit more. And we also do a lot of workshops. We do workshops to help educate and, communicate our messages. We also do them, we have a safe walking, a safe transit, just different ways that we want to help people really learn. I think it's more about education than it is on outreach, and that's something that we've really discovered to be successful. And so on the next slide, I just really wanted to touch on also how important it is in Florida, and this why I wanted to show this is because this is actually funded. It's a project we have with the University of Florida. They actually have a 402 safety grant to do this, but it is a database of findarriveflorida.org, and where it's a listing of all transportation service providers in each of our 67 counties. We really try to make it easy for people to, find their options, and then again, will help aid in transition when they need to. Next slide. And just highlighting here, so we have resources for stakeholders. We do specific resources. We have training videos, visor cards. And the reason I wanted to share this was because this is really, we've worked with other states on this. I do work on that interstate collaboration group with my colleague from Maryland DOT. And so, we've had these conversations, how we can help each other, each of the states. So we've shared information. And then, we even used B-roll from Maryland DOT. We just gave them credit at the end of the video so that we could kind of help develop a product. So that's a great resource, and it's an example of how states can really continue to work together. And I just really wanted to let, just focus on the next slide is that we realize we can't do it alone. While we have a coalition and they're great and they're fantastic about developing the resources, we have the experts at the table. We realized early on that we can't be everywhere, and that how important it is to have people on the community level that can actually, these are their friends, neighbors, and family members, and they can actually push out our resources. Is being proven to be really effective. I think we have 91 or 92 partners on board. We just finished a training early this morning. So it's just really trying to just get our materials out into the communities, which is really proven quite effective. And then I just wanted to round it up, and just one last thing, it all goes to evaluation. We evaluate everything, and I just really wanted to highlight that, remember I was telling you, like in 2018 is where we realized we started to make a difference. And then just seeing that the rates, and this is from the FARS, we pulled this from NHTSA's that, Taylor shared on the traffic facts, but we use Florida licensed drivers in here. And that the rate is going down. And while it's not anywhere near zero, it just gives us that encouragement that we are on the right road. So that is Florida's story. And then my contact, if you want more information, it's right there. And yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Gail. We're glad you were able to recover quickly and come back to us. You have important information to share, and we appreciate that. We do have a little bit of time for questions, so I'm going to ask our panelists to come back on screen. If you would all put your cameras and your mics back on. I do have a few questions, and I actually have a question from, I want to go ahead and pull up a question from an audience member. If I can get this to work for me, there it goes. It's been a technical issue kind of day, hasn't it? We have a question from Julia. She's an occupational therapist and a driver rehab professional. She said she operates a driver evaluation and training company in Georgia and wants to know how to get connected in Georgia with the DDS to discuss older driver safety and medical review processes. I'm not sure what DDS is and how we might help her. Gail, do you have any thoughts on this? That's a neighboring state to you folks. Can you give her a suggestion?
Yeah, I can actually put we could share, follow up with the contact info that Georgia does have a program as well. It's, I think, managed by their Department of Health. It's different, but they have a statewide program, so that would be a good place to start.
Okay, well, we'll make sure we get that information to her, so we'll share that. That would be great. I wanted to go quickly to Lorrie and just ask about, what surprised you the most in this research that you did? I mean, thinking about, we often hear states say, I don't have programs, but we have some really good programs. So talk a little bit about what surprised you the most in the research and what gives you hope in terms of, getting the states more actively engaged in this issue.
Well, thanks. It's interesting. I was looking quickly back through the report, and it's interesting that 17 states said they had older driver safety programs actually administered by the Highway Safety Office. And I thought that was good because, without a real direct funding source, that's a high number to me. I mean, I was really surprised in that. And the other thing is that 37 states have older driver emphasis area in their strategic highway safety plan. So between those two, and I don't know if we didn't do a cross between the states that, are doing it through the Highway Safety Office and the ones that have it in their SHSP, but that's a large number of states, Pam, that are actually addressing this and moving on it. So I was amazed. I don't know, amazed is the right word, but I was impressed that there's that many states that are working on it when we haven't had a lot of discussion on this issue for a long time. I mean, Gail's been working on this for 10 years. And I know we've helped Florida with Safe Mobility for Life program. We've helped some other states, but I didn't hear a lot of talk about it. And so I was amazed that there's that much more. I use that word again. I guess I was amazed that there was that much going on. And that's encouraging to me. And I think we need to talk more about it and have more programs on it, like a GHSA, more interaction on it. because I think there is good stuff going on that states can benefit from. And like I said, the other thing that surprised me was when we did put the guide together, there are a lot of resources in there. I mean, if you want to know how to do something, I think a state has done it. And like one of you said, you can just share it. Take our information, share it. Gail, I think you said that with Maryland. And I know we worked with California on the DOSI, driver orientation screening for cognitive impairment. It's a tool that law enforcement can use. 5 simple questions. They shared a video with us. They shared their tip sheet that law enforcement uses when they stop somebody. And it's starting to take off now in Ohio. So, I mean, there's good things that are out there that you can, if you're not doing it, you can get your hands on and say, I think I can do this in my state. And here's a state that does it. And that's why I think we can do it here too. So it's just connecting the dots and making the information available to people. I find that encouraging. So
that's great. That's great. Taylor, a quick question for you. Just understanding, you mentioned about Chorus, and I hadn't heard about Chorus until a few months ago. So I learned about that going to another conference. But how can if a state has some resources that they've developed, how can they submit those for inclusion on the website, for the Chorus website? How do they do that?
Yes, ma'am. That's a great question. So there's two ways. For everyone that's attending, we have an email. And so if you have a resource, maybe your state has developed it and you think, hey, this would be a great document for everyone else to use. We don't want to recreate the wheel. I think that's kind of what we're all saying, right? We do not want to recreate the wheel. If there's a best practice somewhere, let's share it. And so you can email the Chorus team, or if you go to the Chorus website, just in the banner, there's a submit a resource tab that you can click on. You just fill out that information, and then the Chorus team will then reach out to you. We have a review, a little review protocol that we go through, and then if it passes, then we'll post that on the site. So yes, great question.
Yeah, that's great. Matt, I want to shift to you real quick. Just thinking about the app, what has been the response to this from the membership of AARP? I'm a member. I will tell you that. Lorrie is too, we're members. So what's been the response from your membership to the app, and really, where do you see this thing going?
I'm so sorry. I had the worst time to have a little glitch in the audio there, and I didn't hear the first part of the question.
Well, what I asked was, what has been the AARP member response to the app? What have you seen in terms of, their response, and where do you see this going?
The response has been really good. I mean, I think there's a feedback thing on the app. I think everybody complains a little bit sometimes when they get dinged for speeding or something, but overall, really, really positive so far. And then, where we see it going, we want, our mission in driver safety is to, help people, continually. Oh, are we still there?
We can hear you, Matt.
Oh, we're back. Okay, sorry. Yeah, our goal is to help people to extend their safe driving years, and so as many people as we can get using this app as possible would be great. And even if it's in a way that's a bridge to them, going to an insurer, making them more comfortable, making them better understand, where they might need to improve so that they can then in turn go to an insurer's app and, save money on their insurance or something like that. So, we can be a long-term companion, and we can be a bridge to another telematics app. But, as long as we're making you feel safer and feel more confident behind the wheel and identifying where you may need a little work, we know we're kind of accomplishing what we want to do.
That's great. I think that's a great way to really think about transitioning from your app, where you're really focusing on improving your skills, to making that transition to an insurance company app, because there are some benefits that you can accrue from that. I hate to say it, but I have to cut us off because it's 4 o'clock and I wish we'd had more time. There's a lot of really good information, but what I want to say to everybody out there who's been listening in, please look at the resources. There's a lot of things that are being shared via the panel that we have, the control panel that you have access to. We have handouts. We will send out that follow-up email with lots of links to the report, to the websites you're hearing about, to the information about the AARP app. So a couple of real quick things. I also want to mention another new service that came out, was announced yesterday from Uber. We partner with Uber. We're very big fans of ride hailing. They have a new 1-833 Use Uber service, so that if you're not tech savvy, maybe you don't have a smartphone, and I've got parents in this situation, I know that I can give them that number if they need a ride and they can access it. So this is really a great service. I'm very excited about that. So quickly wrapping up. Thank you, Gail, Taylor, Lorrie, Matt. Thank you so much. Please reach out to these folks. They've shared their contact information. They are a wealth of resources, and we can also help make that connection if you did not catch that information. I want to just remind you all that after the next slate of projects are selected this summer, GHSA will be asking for State Highway Safety Office representatives to be monitors for these BTSCRP, these research projects. Monitors are really important to this work. We need monitors to really help us, see what's going on with these projects, but also help us to identify other experts to conserve on the panels as well. Again, thanks to our speakers. A couple last reminders: mark your calendars for our annual meeting in New York City, August 12th to the 16th. We're very excited about this. We have some great speakers lined up, including Al Roker. And I don't think I have to explain who Al Roker is. So for everything else, visit us at ghsa.org for the latest info on the conference. We've got links to today's resources and speakers. Look for that follow-up email. And more than anything else, be safe out there. And last but not least, May 25th is our next webinar. We'll be focusing on counterfeit vehicle parts. This is sponsored by Honda, and it's one of our pre-annual meeting webinars. And if you think counterfeit vehicle parts, really? This is a big issue that's putting a lot of people at risk, and we need to be aware of it so that we can educate the public about what to do. So thank you for joining us for today, and I hope to see you all in New York City. And thank you again to our speakers. Be safe.